Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Fish Friday number 271 and we have a good one for you today. I do apologize as we did miss a week. I got back from a very terrible fieldwork experience and then just immediately went on vacation and just quite frankly, I don't have an excuse. I was just enjoying time with the family, so I hope you'll forgive me because today we're going to be learning about a fish that more than likely everyone in the world has at least seen a model or a representation of this fish. Today's fish that we're going to be talking about is the blue tang. Now, the blue tang, or scientific name Paracanthurus hepatus, again, that's Paracanthurus hepatus, is part of the family Acanthuridae, which is the family of tang, surgeonfishes, and unicorn fishes. And it's been a while since we've talked about any of the acanthurids, but, you know, I feel like it was time. Especially considering this fish. So now the blue tang is going to be found in the Indo-Pacific region, East Africa, Japan, Samoa, New Caledonia. It's extremely common around the Philippines and Indonesia and the Great Barrier Reef. It's probably one of the more common fish that people see. So even though this fish has some media attention, it's not really rare. But you're going to find these on like coral reef slopes, outer reef walls, lagoons. They're kind of pretty broad in what they like. The adults can be, the bigger they are, the deeper reefs they are found. But juveniles can be found in more like the sheltered coral heads and rubble areas. That's where I think the younger ones are kind of hanging out in those lagoons. And you're going to find them anywhere between 2 and 40 meters, which is around 6 to 120 feet in depth, which is very shallow in terms of fish. I do have the baby number 2 right here next to me, who is looking at it and apparently loving hearing her daddy talk. Would you like to make an appearance later on? Yeah, that might be the thing that keeps people watching the video, to see a baby at the end of this video. But the blue tang is going to be found, like I said, in those coral reef systems, really clear, warm water. Really depends on a lot of different corals. It's not just a monotypic coral. They like having areas that have a ton of coral diversity, and that's because it spends most of its time just kind of swimming between the branching corals and reef revises, because they're primarily feeding on filamentous algae, and that's how they sort of interact with their environment, is they're actually grazing on that algae, and that helps prevent algal overgrowth on coral surfaces, which is pretty important because the more algae that grows on coral, the less sunlight penetrates them. Now, in terms of size, it's a fairly small fish, bigger than most people think, but I do kind of consider it on the smaller side. The adults get up to about 12 inches in length, which is around 30 centimeters. Most individuals in the wild are slightly smaller, around that 10-inch mark. So bigger than some people think, but not really a big fish. But they're going to be this deep-bodied, laterally compressed fish, very ovalish profile. It has this brilliant blue, almost a cobalt blue throughout the body shape. It's got this very orange stripe going from the eye down the back, kind of curving, making this circle. That seems to be pretty indicative. Sometimes the circle kind of goes up to the gill flap, sometimes it's a little farther back. It's got these black lines on the fins. You can't see it in this picture to here, but you can see here that dorsal fin and the anal fin are very edged in that dark black spot. And then you have the black stripes extending down the caudal fin, with that brilliant yellow in the caudal fin as well. And that seems to be pretty indicative. You know, it's Very, very striking, very beautiful. Small mouth, as expected for something that's eating algae. Very elongated dorsal fin and elongated anal fin. Usually their dorsal and anal fin are sitting almost flat to their body, which helps with that sort of ovalish profile. But what a lot of people don't realize is that they actually have a retractable spine on each side of the tail base. You can kind of see it here, and it's very scalpel-like. It's not it's not kind of like your traditional spine. It's almost very flat and curved like a scalpel. Very, very unique. But that's actually a pretty signature feature for all of these fish in this family, used for defense. These are not fish that are attacking for anything really. Now the blue tang is going to be very diurnal. It's very active during the day. They're very social, usually finding at least a pair, more often in small groups. Sometimes they'll come together and have extremely large feeding aggregations. Like I said, they're primarily eating on that algae. Juveniles sometimes act as those cleaner fish we've talked about before. I do apologize. There's some sunlight coming in that I don't know how to affect, because I am recording this early in the morning and I don't even know how to do this. Well, anyway. So, you know, blue tang are just beautiful. They're kind of that kind of standard coral reef fish. They're just doing their things. They can be slightly toward territorials when they get in really confined spaces, but otherwise they're just pretty docile. Now, in terms of reproduction, they are broadcast spawners. During the early evening, the males and females will go up into the water column, releasing the eggs and sperm. And then they'll release the fertilized eggs are very buoyant, so they drift freely among the plankton. And then after a few days, I believe it's like 6 to 8, the eggs hatch into larvae that also spend time in the plankton. After 3-ish weeks, I believe, they just settle back down into the coral reefs to become, you know, juveniles. This is why they're so widespread. That sort of strategy allows for very wide genetic dispersal, and it's one of the reasons why they are so common. You know, it's really there. And in terms of common, they're not uncommon in the aquarium trade as well. You can find them anywhere from like $3 to hundreds of dollars. Why? I don't know. Saltwater fish and aquariums just are weird. But you've probably realized that this fish might bear a striking resemblance to another fish very common in a kids movie, Dory. And the yes, the blue tang is the fish that gave the fish Dory from Finding Nemo its sort of color palette. But it's despite that, this fish kind of actually got a bad reputation, is that it's actually one of the better fish at remembering stuff. We've talked about in the past how fish can start recognizing their owners and things like that. They're responsive to actually individuals. Blue tangs are a good example of that. They're very responsive. They're very social. And they're very important, and if they are in an aquarium, they'll actually start recognizing their owners and sort of accepting them. So yeah, unlike Dory, this fish actually does have a good memory. But for the interesting facts we're gonna end the video on, and I do say facts because there were 2 and I couldn't decide, is number 1 is that scalpel. A lot of people, myself included, thought that it was a true bone spine that kind of stuck out and was for defense. That's actually not the case. It's just a very intensely modified scale. which is really bizarre to me that it's not a bone, because most spines in the fish world are actually bones, not, they're either bones or they're fin rays, which you can make the argument are bone-ish, bone adjacent. But this is actually just a modified scale, which is really, really interesting to me. Like catfish, they can lock the spine outward, whipping its tail around to try and deter predators. Truly bizarre. But the other interesting fact for the video is actually how much of a color changing ability the blue tangs have. Now, it's not like going from blue to red or completely changing like that. It's changing based on its mood, health, lighting conditions, and it will go to all the shades of blue and purple, going from deep violet blue to a very pale shade of blue, you know, like that sky blue, robin blue. And that's, to me, that's really bizarre, because changing colors takes a lot of energy, and this is not something that's they're not changing color for camouflage. So it makes me wonder why they still evolved to kind of have that in their process. Just a really, really interesting thing. Now, come here, my little rose. Gotta let go of that. And here is baby ping number 2, who's reaching for the microphone just like baby ping number 1 was. Yep, she's coming for it. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you do. I'd really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. If you'd like to support the channel, please click the link down below. It is by no means expected, but very much appreciated regardless. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones. Mwah! And peace.